Thanks, everybody. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Kemmler. Our next guest is the adult in the room. In the new Netflix series Locke Key, Darby Stanchfield plays the matriarch in the story of a family suddenly surrounded by puzzles relating to the history of that family. Please welcome Darby Stanchfield. Let's hear it. Hey.
Hi, Ricky.
Hello.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Good to see you. What is it like to be the adult in the room on this show?
It's about polar opposite of my experience on Scandal, in which we were all adults. And it is really quite a special experience. The kids on the show, not only the kids who play my children, the Locke children, but the kids in the high school and our neighbor, played by Kobe Bird. Everybody on the show is extraordinary, the young adults. And it feels like magic working with them. It's
What's
great.
Interesting about you being the adult in the room on the show, I'll just keep saying that phrase over and over and over.
You just want to make me feel
I'm
old.
just going to murder that phrase. Is that you're actually not, in a way, because there are things that you can't see that the kids can. So in a way,
Yes.
they are protecting you often.
Yes, it's which I like about this show because it's if kids are watching it, like they have a lot of power. The kids in this show, and I think kids watching it will be empowered. But that brings up a good point of like the rules of this world are in Keyhouse, which is this, you saw the trailer, it's like this house filled with magic and magical keys. The kids are the only ones who can see the magic and retain it. And the adults can have an experience of it, but then they immediately have like this amnesia and they forget it. And there's a kind of isolation in that as an adult on this show, both as an actor and as Nina Locke. Nina's already in a sort of isolated place from her husband being murdered, and she's grieving. All of them are grieving, and so they're all sort of in their own separate worlds grieving. But also like just our age difference, and they're doing the magic. So our schedules were quite different. And
Your shooting schedules?
yeah, sure.
Oh,
Because,
wow.
you know, at some point they're off with shadows and in caves and going through the woods with flashlights, and Nina's at home cooking dinner or, you know, or battling alcoholism.
There's also kind of a kind of metaphor there for children and teenagers.
Yeah.
In the sense that like there are emotions. I mean, sure, it's not puzzles and keys, but there are certain emotional intricacies that teenagers and children feel that adults are just no longer can tap into anymore, and therefore it seems are like completely blind to.
Yeah, I mean, it speaks to both the innocence of children and that they are open to perhaps more than adults are. You know, when children have this innocence and this sort of natural inclination of infinite possibilities, and it seems as one gets older, they sort of get more, you know, set in their ways or pragmatic or whatever. It also speaks to me, I like there's like a double layer to this show. It's really about this family. It's about the heart of this family and this family going through this tragedy together. And then there's magic on top of it. The tragedy being like the loss of their dad, of Nina's husband and the children's dad. They all witness, you know, this brutal murder of him, and they have to try to figure out what happens. And that's really Nina's journey. And so they're all grieving. The kids, it's a coming of age thing for them in terms of losing their father, and what's that mean, you know, for the oldest to step into the shoes of being like the man in the family. And so, you know, it's really like cool the way our creators have dealt with both family issues as well as like it being about this magic. And, you know, that layer of magic where the kids get to be in that world.
Well, the family issues kind of come first.
Yeah.
And then the magic issues
yes.
like end up in a way, because the family issues come first, the magic ends up sort of expanding upon and illuminating those family issues.
Yes, sure.
Yeah.
And sometimes hindering and sometimes helping.
Yeah.
You know, like it empowers them in moments and it doesn't. And they're kind of on their own. You know, you find out in the pilot, they're sort of on their own because their mom can't be in that world. And I like that it's like a double-edged sword, and there's a bittersweetness to that for them because they love their mom, and I really like the way that that's been designed in the graphic novels.
Right, there
as
isn't
the
really
rule.
Yeah, there isn't really like a animosity held towards their mom. You know, like as much as their mom isn't seeing what they
I
see,
know.
there isn't a kind of like, ugh, mom.
No,
towards her
no,
at
no.
all.
It's really sweet. It's both in the graphic novels, the way that Joe Hill writes about the family and the way it's illustrated. That's one way in which it feels similar. I mean, Nina Locke, my character, she can't even look at the children in the graphic novels. She's drunk the whole time, and she can't. They remind her too much of her husband. But so the difference in our TV series is that she does very much want to be a good mother and connect. She's just really bad at it because she,
Heartbroken.
yeah. And Rendell Locke did all of the parenting. She was a fixer-upper and an artist, and so that was something we sort of established, was like he did all the heavy lifting, and now she's trying to have to learn how to connect and help these kids heal. And
It's a very different role for
Yeah.
I think a mother in a show or a
yeah,
movie.
I when I first became connected to the project and I read the first 5 scripts, I was like, oh, good. This isn't just a milquetoast mom who's like, making cookies and is in the same cardigan sweater and everything's great. And she has no flavor. Like, this mom is flawed. She burns toast. She's like,
The most flawed thing a mother
she
can do, by the way.
Yes.
Don't you burn my toast again,
She
Mom.
can't find the hockey permission slip, but her biggest battle is a recovering alcoholic and trying not to drink during this really challenging time.
What was it like working with these kid actors? We had, Connor's not really a
Yeah.
kid anymore. We had him here
No.
just the other day. Very precocious
Yes.
young man.
Oh, you call him precocious.
I guess not. He's like in his
yeah.
mid-20s now. But
But he really translates into a 17-year-old. It's amazing. He just he can turn on the switch, and I'm like, how did you just drop 10 years of your, because I can be out to coffee with him, and we have these deep conversations about, film directors, and then, we go on set, and I'm like, you're my child.
Right.
It was great. It was really fantastic. All 3 of the kids, Emilia Jones, Jackson Robert Scott, Connor Jessup, they're all very different actors. And I felt like the first priority for me as an actor was to connect with each of them on a real basic human level. Not to go in there and be like, listen, I've been on a TV show for 7 years and this is how you do it. But really like let them teach me what they needed
I also
as
imagine
an acting partner.
the production
And
of
I
this
learned a lot.
was far different than the production of something like Scandal.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, you could say, like, I've been on a
Sure.
TV show for 7 years. Not that you did that,
Yeah.
but the 7 years that you did on Scandal, while in many ways probably prepped you in some ways for this, the schedule and
Yeah.
the way it was shot was completely different.
Completely different. It was like shooting 10 movies
Yeah.
versus shooting episodics. And we were in freezing weather, and we were in, Nova Scotia and Toronto. And so it felt very, cinematic in nature. The budget was crazy big. There was a lot of technicalities, too, with special effects. The mirror sequence, for instance, that's in the trailer. It took a month.
Really?
Not for my character, but for all of the sequences of like Tyler entering the mirror, you seeing the mirror shatter, Nina walking down the hall. I mean, the storyboards, the director, Michael Morris, I think his storyboards were 100, 200 pages long. It was insane. And that is something that I'd never experienced on Scandal. That was very verbose drama that was like rich in language and a fast-paced, walk and talk.
Yeah.
And this was like the opposite. Action, children.
Does it feel like I imagine
Snow.
one has they're different, so one is harder in different ways, but
They're both hard.
Yeah, fast-paced walk and
Yeah.
talk where you get there in the morning, you get your sides.
Yes.
They've rewritten it from the night before,
Yes,
right? You've
often.
got maybe like a 4-page monologue or speech within a scene that you've got to get it memorized by
Yes.
9 or 10 in the morning. You've got a
Yes.
few hours to shoot it. Is that harder than sort of showing up and being like, okay, this is going to be shot in many different parts, so we're going to be cutting around a lot of this stuff today. You're just going to be here for 10 hours, looking here, looking here, looking
Yeah,
here.
they both have their challenges. I would say that I can't compare. They really are apples and oranges. And for me, the challenges weren't so much the technical special effects part of the show, but it was really about my character goes through a bit of an unraveling. Nina Locke at some point falls off the wagon. And so it was finding that arc and finding Nina. I had been Abby Whelan for 164 episodes or something like that. And I naturally have a fast pace. I talk fast, I move fast. And so it really, for me, that was the challenging thing in this, is like finding Nina's rhythm. What's functioning alcoholic? What does that look like? It's not sloppy drunk at the bar. It's functioning alcoholic. The subtleties of that, and the hiding, and the shame, and the grief of losing this husband.
Functioning alcoholic is functioning until they're not.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Yes,
Right?
sure.
You don't know until all of a sudden, oh, damn, you've been drunk for like 2 weeks, haven't you? How did this happen?
Right.
Yeah.
And again, to go back to the like isolation of Nina, it took me a minute to find that too. Listen, you get a job like this, and all you are when you first get it is happy. You're like, oh my God, these scripts are amazing. It's based on a graphic novel. All the actors are amazing. I'm in a good mood. And then you suddenly get on set and you have to find this grief and this place of like real darkness. And so I experimented with living in Toronto and not flying home. I isolated myself quite heavily. By the time I got to this sort of unraveling place as Nina Locke, I was sort of feeling that in a way, and that I was homesick and I was lonely, and I was really not in the scandal world anymore. And that was a nice place to be. So there was kind of this parallel. It's not the same, it's not method, but it helped me in terms of really struggling with the alcohol and really struggling to connect with the children and be a good mom. Yeah. I learned a lot. Challenging in a different way.
You said that you naturally are like a fast talker, fast walker.
Yeah.
You have a kinetic energy. We were just talking backstage. You're from Alaska. You said that you grew up on dirt roads where there was no more than 1 or 2 trucks.
Gravel roads, yeah.
Gravel roads. Excuse me.
Very different.
Very different.
Yes.
When were you always a sort of kinetic fast talker, fast walker then, or was it something that you picked up when you later moved to the cities?
No, I was an intense child.
What does that mean?
I've always had a lot of energy, and I've always had a great bandwidth for activity. And I'm a kind of person that's like happier when I'm really busy doing a lot of things. Ironically, Alaska is this, big, vast, beautiful land where there's just not a lot of people. So as a way to, I think, unwind or unplug, I do go to nature. That's just my first instinct. And I think that's, because it feels like home. But I even sort of had that there. That's that energy and that appetite for activity and action. Yeah.
You weren't sort of slow and moving.
No, no, I wasn't.
So you were primed for the cities. You were ready
I
for the
was.
big cities.
When I first got out of grad school, I went to ACT in San Francisco, and when you do this, there's showcases that you go to New York and you go to San Francisco and LA, and you do these showcases, and agents and managers and casting directors come, and then so we did these showcases, and I had like 10 meetings in New York, and I went to all of these meetings after the showcases, and I was like, I'm going to take the subway, and I'm going to eat, egg sandwiches, and I'm going to do all the things. Like, if I have no money and I live here, and almost every person who I met with was like, "Are you a New Yorker? Like, you have this?" Because I was very fast and I was very like direct and to the point in these meetings. I wasn't beating around the bush in terms of what I was looking for after grad school, and that kind of surprised me. I was like, "No, I've never lived here," but I take it as a compliment.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
When did you start acting? How did you start acting?
Listen, I was acting in Alaska when there was nothing to do. I grew up with hardly any TV. There was like one channel on TV. I'd have to wake up at like 4:30 in the morning to watch cartoons because the channel has to share football, cartoons, every cooking shows. So not a lot of TV. So I was play acting as a very young kid. And then when we moved to the lower 48, when I was a junior in high school, senior year of high school, I tried out for the school play. And I was like, oh, okay. I feel like I belong here. Mm-hmm. Like, I was at a school where there were cliques and people, the cheerleaders all are together and the athletes and people who do math. I mean, I'd never been in a school where people group off. I was in a small school of 50 people, my whole high school. That's total. There were like 12 people in my class. There was no such thing. So when I moved to this big school, I was like, oh, the theater, that's where I feel most at home and connected. And then I think that one thing led to another, and it took me a minute to be brave and say, I'm going to be an actor.
How did your parents respond to that when you first said that?
My mom is an artist, and she was always very supportive. My dad challenged me a little bit more on that. He was a very successful commercial fisherman and a business owner of a fishing business, and he was always supportive in my endeavors, but he was like, how are you going to make a living at that? He was concerned. You know, he's my dad. He's like, how are you going to do for yourself?
What's the plan?
What's the plan? He wanted to know. Of course, I don't know what the plan is then, but
You're like, I'm going to become an actor. There is no plan.
There's no plan. But I think his challenging me was good.
Yeah.
He used to say to me when I was doing theater, show me the money. And I got my first paycheck doing like, what was it? Midsummer Night's Dream. And I got a check for like $100. And I immediately was like, here you go. Money. But I think that challenge, one could look at it and be very judgmental and think that's very superficial. But I think he kind of toughened me up in terms of, if you really want to do this, like, take care of yourself and find a way to make this work for you.
Right.
So you can do it.
Don't be wishy-washy about it. Like,
Yeah,
it's going to be a
commit.
career. You have to
Yeah.
go at it like it's a career. Like it's a
Yeah,
job.
and then he was very supportive about me going to a master's program and getting a, MFA in theater training. And I'm glad I did that. Like, that was a good route for me to do some stage and get some training in that way before I moved to LA. When I started to go out there.
What was it like when you started to go out there in LA?
I was nervous. I had really come from theater, and I wasn't trained in camera auditions. And so I think there was like an adjustment period. I went through this period of like getting a lot of close calls and a lot of, putting a pin in you, or putting on a veil, or the terms of like, when they're considering you and two other people and not getting it. And I remember talking to an agent once and being like, this is happening over and over. Like, when is this going to land? And she was like, you've landed. Like, the fact you've gotten to there, it just is a matter of time. And she was right. Yeah. But for me, it was a road of perseverance and hard work. And I moved to LA knowing nobody, not growing up in the business. And I moved to LA when I was almost 30. So I started late as a woman in the business. And yet I don't regret any of it. I think the success that has come for me, I appreciate every day.
What was the decision like to move to LA? And where were you coming from?
Easy. I was coming from San Francisco.
Okay.
Yeah, I came straight from San Francisco. My dad helped me pack up a U-Haul, and it really was like New York or LA. I was not messing around. I was like, I've got this master's degree. I'm going to go become a professional actor. But LA made more sense to me because I grew up on the West Coast. I think something about the space, the air, it just felt like it would be an easier place for me to be unemployed if I was versus New York at the time. I wasn't a triple threat by any stretch of the imagination, so it seemed like LA was a better fit.
No, LA is the home of the unemployed.
It's the home.
It's
You can always go to the beach.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like, New York is like, I feel like if you're unemployed in New York, you're just like rife with anxiety. And you're like, I got to find a job. I don't know what's happening. Everybody's working around me.
Right.
And LA, it's like, that guy's not working. He's just writing
the coffee shop
script.
is full of everybody with their laptops.
Yeah, exactly.
Writing their own thing, which is not bad, but
it's wonderful.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I moved there right away and have been there ever since. And I just leave when I work or vacation.
How long did it take you to land what felt like a breakthrough part, or a part that opened doors for you?
I mean, there are levels. There are always levels. The biggest break in terms of like, did we go to high school together? Do I know you on Facebook?
No.
That sort of thing. Between that and being absolutely recognized in the grocery store, Abby Whelan. It was Scandal, which, by the way, was my first pilot that I ever booked.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not one of those people who had done 20 pilots and tested and never gone to series. I had done a really nice body of recurring roles, Helen Bishop on Mad Men, Meredith Castle on Castle, these different Jericho playing the doctor, Skeet Ulrich, and in that world, Gerald McRaney. So I'd build these sort of arcs, these nice recurring characters. But Scandal was my first pilot, booked it, kind of thought, is this going to change my life? I wonder, is this going to go? It's Shonda Rhimes. It went.
Who had just mainly done Grays by that point, right?
And Private Practice.
Okay.
But yeah, Grays was that was her big success, but had proven success, and her writing is so solid. And then really like Scandal was, it was a mid-season show, 7 episodes, so short first season. By the time the second season came along and the first few episodes aired, we were suddenly like that water cooler show. We were a skit on Saturday Night Live. Queen Latifah was talking about us. Oprah was coming to the set. It was like overnight. And I remember driving home one day from the set, and I'd sort of been in this bubble of working home. And this woman spotted me in the car. She was just on the sidewalk, and she burst into tears and dropped her groceries and was like, Abby Whelan. And I was like, oh, I guess people are watching our show.
Were you like,
it took me a minute to get used to that, but I have to tell you, at the end of the day, that's the reason why I do what I do. Telling stories is like the enjoyment that it brings people, or the inspiration, or the curiosity, or I want to go out and do that, or like, I love that female character you played. I mean, that's what I like about it. When I meet someone that I admire, it's an exciting feeling. And so when I see that in others, it's like some of the best rewards.
do you know how to play it cool when you meet someone you admire?
No. No. I always don't play it cool. And then, sometimes it goes off well and sometimes it doesn't, but
Can I ask
no.
who it's not gone off well with before?
No. No, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but I mean, I've had a lot of really nice, like my first experience with someone that I just idolized was years ago. I was in Seattle. I was waiting tables, and Sting was on concert. He was on tour, and he was like at the restaurant. And I was so nervous. I spilled ice water like all over the table, and he took pity on me. We had a nice conversation, but yeah.
I did the same thing to Bruce Springsteen at my first job in New
you?
York City. Yeah, at the Tribeca Grill.
Yeah.
I was
And how was
serving
he?
food to Bruce Springsteen. I didn't spill anything on it, but I
Okay.
gave him the wrong meal at a private party because I was so nervous. And the owners of the restaurant who were standing there were like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Right.
And Bruce Springsteen looked up and he went, hey, man, it's cool. And
Oh,
I was like,
of course
oh my
he
God,
would.
I'm so glad I screwed this up.
Wow. I love that.
That was one of those moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's not any different than spilling the water on the...
You can't yell at any
No.
person that yells at someone that works in the service industry. There's like a special place in hell for you.
Exactly. It is a hard job, and I did it for
Yell.
10 years. It's a
You
grind.
Don't yell at people in
No.
the service industry.
No, they're there to serve you, and it's a hard job, and everybody's different and has a lot of demands. And
Even if they're bad at it, even if they have a bad
you want to know
attitude,
something? I
you
tip well
Same.
to every server, and if they're particularly having a bad day, here's an extra 10. I feel bad for you. I know what that feels like.
I've been with people before who've been like, they weren't very good. Don't give them a full tip. And I'm like, what are you
No,
talking
double
about?
that.
Like, yeah.
I know. Yeah.
We have time for a couple of questions from the audience. The first one is from Roberti. Got it? Okay, cool.
Is it? Okay, it's working. Okay, I'm sorry. So my first question, I have two.
Yeah.
It would be, what was your most memorable Scandal memory?
Ah.
Yeah.
That's so hard because it was 7 years and, a dream cast. I think some of the maybe most precious memories are like these pinch me moments, when we're all like, there's the pilot and staying up all night long shooting some of these sequences in the conference room and getting to know my co-stars. Like it's like the first date. Like that's one moment. But I think there's also pinch me moments like we're all at the White House Correspondents' Dinner together in tuxedos and gowns, drinking champagne. Isn't this fun? So it's a collection of those. I can't just rate one. Yeah. But it usually has to do with the whole cast because that's how good that group was. Yeah.
Okay. My second question would be like, what would you tell someone who wants to be an actor or an actress? Like, what would you tell them?
Be nice to people in the service industry.
I would say, wow, what would I say? Well, first of all, if you want to do it and you love it, stick with it. And I'd say early on, you have to be your own best cheerleader, and you can't look to an outside person to tell you that you should do it. Because I think that's what I was waiting for or looking for. Like, if you've got that burning desire, just follow through and follow that inner compass and stick with that. And find those that support you in that. Surround yourself with people that support you in that to help you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Next question's from Julia.
Hi, Darby.
Hi.
I was wondering, since Locke Key is so heavily driven by special effects and visual effects, what was it like working and acting with those on set?
It was pretty crazy. It was so very different from Scandal. It was really technical. So it kind of reminded me of theater, and that you're like, okay, I have to react to this thing that I can't see. I don't know what it's going to look like. And it's like a fourth wall in theater in a way. So you really specify it moment to moment as an actor. Like what would that moment be for Nina? Is that shock or confusion? Is there a relationship in which she can, is it curiosity? So like getting very, very specific with those moments and then just pretending it because you don't have anything to react to, you know? So I think that's kind of how I carved that out. And then patience because it takes hours. Yeah. Thank you. Good question.
Last question's from Jody. Hey.
Hi, Jody.
I just a couple key questions.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite key? What is your favorite key? And then also, is there any keys from the graphic novels that didn't make it to season 1 that you wish had?
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to start with that question. There's a key in the novels, and if you haven't read them, I recommend. They're phenomenal, but there's the giant key. I mean, you know, that would be amazing to see this to see the giant key in action on the series. Many hours of green screen, but I think that would be a cool key. And my favorite key, honestly, I sort of change my answer all the time because they're such sexy keys. But I think the anywhere key is really kind of like one of my favorites because, listen, I'm cutting back on my carbon footprint. I'm sort of more consciously traveling. I'm trying to when I travel to New York, for instance, see Bellamy and Katie from Scandal, they're shooting something here. See Tony Goldwyn, pack it in, see everybody, do everything, but fly less.
Is Tony still on stage?
Yes,
right now
and I saw it last night, and he's incredible.
Great, isn't he?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite performances he's ever done. It's blew me away.
He's really amazing. I saw the first part with John Benjamin Hickey.
Oh, did you?
Who was very good.
Wow, and then
I
the
saw
second part with him.
with Tony, and Tony was great.
He made me weep.
Yeah.
I hugged a stranger next to me at the end of the play, and we thanked each other for getting to experience it together because we were both. He offered me his handkerchief at some point because I was a mess, but I also just love Tony Goldwyn, and to see him crack open that character. I mean, to see him crack open wide as this character was.
Yeah.
He did it.
Seeing him getting the chance to do something like that is really special.
Yeah, it was a good role for him. Yeah.
Yeah. Darby, it's been so nice talking to you.
It's been nice
Thank
talking
you
to
so much for coming
you.
here. Locke Key
Thanks
is
for the
currently
questions.
on Netflix. People can tune in now. All the episodes are there.
They can binge it right now.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Darby Stanchfield, everybody, let's hear it.
Thank you.